Coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome in. It's episode 89 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm your host, Jacob at Richardson13, joined by my co-host, Mr. Nick Carnes at Carnesies817. We are brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Homage Apparel on this weird football somber day. Nick, how are you this evening?
It's definitely a different type of mood to start the show than I thought we would be entering, but I think it's appropriate. Jacob, full disclosure, Jacob and I were talking pre-show, and my dad always says that sports are supposed to be the candy store of life, and I think a lot of this has hit harder because, you know, when you're watching football, when you're watching whatever sport, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a removal from, you know, the daily grinds of life and you know, the things that we struggle with. And so when that changes like it did yesterday, I think that's we're seeing, you know, that I think. On a positive note, there's been so much support. I saw the toy fund. I'm not even sure.
So Damar Hamlin's has a charity that he started as he was coming into the NFL. And the main thing he was trying to fund was a toy drive for kids back in his hometown. And he was trying to get like $2,500 or whatever it was. You know, for this past Christmas, obviously that has already gone past, but he apparently, this is also an update since he's gotten all these donations. His family has put out an update on that, and it also does other things for children, back to school supplies, you know, things like that, just centered around children that don't have like some others may have, and helping those children, and which is all the videos and the things that I've read about Hamlin since the situation was, he does sound like an absolutely upstanding citizen, and I'm wishing him all the best. They have raised over $5 million for that. The last that I checked, let me see if I can find it here. Awesome. The last I checked, people had donated over $5 million to his charity since the incident, and I know Nick wasn't $5.3 million.
Wow.
I know Nick wasn't watching the game. He was watching the Cavs at the time that the incident happened. But I can say, like, that's just not something you're supposed to see while you're watching sports. And it's a very harsh reminder that they are people. There's been some really nasty tweets out there since the incident. The only thing that matters right now is Damar's health and well-being. There was an update an hour ago that said that his uncle spoke with NFL Network. You can find the interview on NFL Network or probably on Twitter. I think there's some clips of it. Originally, Damar was on 100% oxygen from a ventilator. He is down to 50%. And that is a really big deal. That means that he was not able to breathe on his own, and now he is partially breathing on his own. He is still sedated from the last thing that I read, but every update that has come out today was optimistic from his family. Even when it wasn't, you know, like a lot of details to it, it was very optimistic. So it's just this reminder that, you know, life is precious, and it doesn't matter who you are. Things happen that just don't make sense. And I think tonight we're going to try to talk about football, which I had just no ability to talk about today. Hug your loved ones, tell your loved ones that what, you know, there's a song that I really, really like by Cody Johnson called Till You Can't. And, you know, the line it starts off talking about, going fishing with your dad, and he said the line is, you can always stick a rain check in his hand until you can't. And I think that is the biggest thing that I got from last night. And it's just, if you're feuding over something stupid and trivial, now's the time to get rid of it. Just the staunch reality of what life is like, and just prayers for his family, and that's what I've got.
Absolutely. I think, as I've gotten a little bit older, I have stopped taking life for granted, and as I've kind of learned, because especially Damar being 24, it's like I feel like most people do feel pretty invincible at that age, and so something that personally I've learned as time goes on is it's not guaranteed and it's not promised. So there is no time like the present, and it can be really easy to get bogged down in the weeks in the work week and whatever. But I think it's a good reminder that life is precious and there is no time like today. So I think it's a great takeaway from this is just to value life and to maximize it as much as you can.
Yeah. I think that's, well said. I think we can, Andrew weighed in talking about his dog was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I'm really sorry to hear that, man. I know what your dogs mean to you. So we've had those conversations. All right. So let's shift gears now. And I should have put a disclaimer at the front of this that if you didn't want to talk about that, you could skip to here, but maybe I'll do that in the audio version. Let's move. Sunday, the Browns defeat the Commanders 24-10 in what was a bit of a roller coaster game. You hear the tale of two halves story, and that was 100%. I mean, if you look up the definition of what does the football term tale of two halves mean, it shows you this football game.
Yes, it does.
So it was just insane. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. I'll do some highlights here real quick, and then we'll kind of dive into them. Amari Cooper finishes with an 85.6 overall PFF grade. That is the team's highest. Chubb comes in second at 83. You got here's something I wanted to highlight too, because he has kind of some up and down play this season. James Hudson comes in for 19 snaps after the Jack Conklin injury, gets a 70.7 overall, 77 pass block, and 68 run block. He's had a little bit of struggles up and down in his sophomore season, so it was kind of nice to see him come in there and really not cement, but you just give you some good tape to look forward to. Michael Woods comes in fifth, 67. Wyatt Teller continues to struggle in pass protection, a 41 in pass protection. I go down Jed. It was a really bad day for Jed as well. David Njoku didn't look like – somebody sent me the message. I think it was Randy Gurzy, my editor at Dog Pound Daily, sent a message about in the first half. Oh, it was Randy and Eddie. Eddie and I, if you haven't seen our Browns postgame show that came out yesterday, Monday, Eddie was talking about the body language from Njoku didn't look like he wanted to be there. Yeah, in that first half, and then it kind of looked better in the second half. But Kareem Hunt played a little bit better. Still some things going on. Watson has the up and down one. Conklin kind of struggles a little bit, 51, but I think the offensive line in the first half really, they're still clearly getting used to what it's like to block and protect for Deshaun Watson and his ability to extend plays. So offensive side of the ball, right off the top of your head, some immediate thoughts about that. And you can go through the first half. You can do it. So what we did on the postgame show on Monday, we did a little blurb about the first half and then the second. So break it down. Let's start with the first half and then into the second.
Okay. You know what? My biggest takeaway from the first half is just that Deshaun was getting the tar kicked out of him. they were not able to protect well for him. And I think it's reflected in some of the grades you just put out there. But it's no secret that the strength of Washington's defense is their defensive line. And I think they were, when the Browns played Washington a couple of years ago with Baker, that they very similarly, it was like Washington has this great defensive line and they were able to move the ball offensively. And that just didn't happen at all in the first half, really. And so I was highly concerned because the offense was doing nothing. And I think one of my biggest fears is that Deshaun has been beat up since entering the NFL. Houston did not ever protect him well. He was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in his final year there. And so I think you grow concerned about consistently getting your quarterback beat up, especially when he's coming to a place that was supposed to have this offensive line that was going to protect him better. So I think that was my biggest concern to open things, because, and Kevin Stefanski's been under a lot of fire for his offense. I just, when you're getting very little push in the run game and you're unable to protect your quarterback, I don't know what type of real offensive production you're going to get. And I know we're going to save the second half, but so to me, that was the main takeaway I had early is the defense was giving the Browns opportunities offensively, and they just really weren't able to do much with them.
Yeah. And you look, and I'll catch up on some comments over here. Cooper is like 6 all-time in yards for a Browns receiver. Yeah, I know. I know. I do think Teller is injured, but some of the things that he's struggling at aren't really what you would think he would struggle at with a calf injury, unless there's something else. What's going on, Josh? Happy to have you here, as always, my friend. Yeah, man, there was I texted, and then in the second half, I refuted it. But this was the first game I live tweeted since Cincinnati. Wow. I did not live tweet during Baltimore or New Orleans. Okay. Part of it, New Orleans, was because I was listening to the radio because I didn't have the actual game feed until later. So I didn't really want to live tweet that sort of stuff because I'm just not really being able to really analyze what I'm seeing. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I live tweeted a little bit, but I didn't put out there that first half. I had some serious concerns about coaching. And that was just because I really felt that this was the perfect opportunity to take a step forward, to have sort of, sorry, I'll put that comment up here in a second, to sort of have this step forward with the offense and kind of open it up, kind of start slinging the rock successfully, because you had the situation last week where you did kind of sling the rock, but you had the conditions and all of the stuff. So it all lines up to be 60 degrees, sunny, and, all this great stuff. And you're like, okay. And for the most part, your weapons are healthy, and so you're looking at, and in this situation, one of the most staunch Kevin Stefanski defenders in myself actually sent a text message that went, "This better get figured out soon." And that, because if I was feeling that watching it, I know Jimmy Haslam was feeling that watching it. And so, though I would never want to make a decision on a coach or a player over a singular half of football, that's how bad it was. Because, it was just, his wide receivers weren't fighting. They still don't understand the kind of extender he is. But you saw it kind of come alive in the second half. But it was just kind of oh no, we might have a problem here. Yep. Not that I don't think Watson will figure it out, because I still thought he would. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, oh.
It was
might
brutal. Yeah. You know what? They could not get anything going, and I agree, because as the season has worn on, I mean, it's been no secret that the Kevin Stefanski heat is rising, and there's questions, because I think, especially as you look forward to next year, right? There's going to be massive expectations on the season, and for good reason. So, so you're looking for hope or some signs of the growth, and especially after last week when the conditions were so bad, I think we were all hoping to really take advantage and see what like a glimpse in the future.
So I'm glad you used that term. So Jake Burns had tweeted, in the first half, and I was very interested after the game to go back and look at like some of the people I follow and listen to and respect in the business and kind of see if maybe they had the same timeline that I did. And so I go back and I look at it, and he was like, we just need to see glimpses like that. He said it in more words, but that's essentially so like, and then of course he followed it up with, okay, glimpses seen after in the second half. So it was just one of those things that was like probably the worst half of football. And the most demoralizing thing of that half of football was the Commanders going on a 21-play scoring drive that took up essentially the entire second quarter. Because they did, what was it, like 11 minutes or something like that? Like, I think they got the ball with like 11 minutes and some change, and then they scored with like 23 seconds or something. Just asking, like, the Browns were making plays defensively, but Washington would just get enough on third down. Just enough on third down or get a penalty because they had like the defensive holding and, they move it right down. And I thought, oh no, this defense is going to collapse, because the commentators mentioned it as well, that, the Commanders were getting the football to start the second half on top of that. And you're like, oh, okay, that's enough of this bullshit. So I'm very, very impressed for the stop they got. Let me that coming out of the second half, we'll move to the second half here in a minute. Apparently Nick sounds like Ryan. I hear it.
Hey, I'll take it.
Hear it.
You never know when your day is going to be made. Thank you.
I hear it. I'd honestly be lying if I said I wasn't a little concerned about next week, but I'm still going to have fun tomorrow. He's got a bishop that is a Steelers chaplain.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers are playing well, right? I think there's something like 6-2 in their last 8.
The Browns would finish the season 6-2 if they win.
Okay, I'll take it. I mean, this is and we'll get there, but this is a really meaningful game for both teams, and so I'm really excited to dive into that. But
first half, though, defensively, before we move over to the drastically different.
Absolutely.
It's been 3 weeks. This is now 3 weeks in a row that I'm going to bring this up, but this is a totally different Grand Delpit than what started the season.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to write this up for Dog Pound Daily, but like 50 people have already done it, so I'm going to look like a copycat because I didn't already get it done, so I'm not going to do it. But I talked about it, and you can go look at the last 2 episodes of this podcast, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
Grand Delpit finishes with a 92.3 PFF grade, a 91 in coverage.
Wow.
But I think it's the run defense. Dude, Grant Delpit had 4 freaking stop tackles as a safety. He has over 100 tackles on the year. Did you know that? 100 tackles on the year. If you give him the solo and the assist numbers, he has over 100 tackles on the year. Grant Delpit was known to be, questioned. They questioned his
tackling.
Sorry, I got a bunch of numbers in front of me, and I'm like, what does that mean? And so he did miss a tackle in this, but you know what? He was flying with reckless abandon. He was targeted 4 times, allowed 0 catches, had 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. You do like,
what?
4 stop tackles.
I gotta say too, ever since Carson Wentz through no real fault of his own, completely demoralized me in week 1 of 2016,
whatever his rookie year was. Yeah,
when the Eagles just obliterated the Browns, when the Browns had traded down and not taking Carson Wentz, and I've held that grudge against him ever since. So when the Browns,
these last 2 games have been fun against
them. The Browns beat them in that slop rain game where Nick Chubb had the amazing stiff arm.
Olivier Vernon had like 3 sacks when Miles had COVID.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. One was a safety.
Yeah. And you know what? I think this is a really key point too. that some people were trying to discount. Entering this game, Washington is fighting for a playoff spot, right? Aaron Rodgers said "Go Browns" at the end of his Pat McAfee interview because they really needed the Browns to beat Washington.
He made more comments about it after the game too. After their game, yeah, he said something along the lines of, they got the job done and we really appreciate it or something.
Okay.
He said he made a comment after the Packers just dismantled the Vikings.
Okay. Well, so I just want to say, because there's been people trying to discredit what the Browns accomplished, the Commanders are entering that game fighting for the playoffs and believing that Carson Wentz is the guy. There's a lot to play for. They're a motivated team. They've been a hot team. They've been playing well. So I think when you look at what the Browns were able to do against Carson Wentz, it is significant and it does matter because they have been a good team. And I know Heineke has been a big part of them. I
still don't understand that.
Yeah, it's weird.
Carson Wentz is awful, man. Why your response? Like, they were like, we need a spark, and your spark was to put Carson Wentz back in the game. Oof. Like let me go over some more of the defensive stuff. Let's just do the whole defense, and then we'll talk about the offense.
Sure.
So Taven Bryan, a 90 overall. Taven Bryan. And I continue to think if you could re-sign him as like the third D tackle, so he was like a situational rusher, I continue to think that would be pretty cool. The Browns had 33 stop tackles. 33 stop tackles. A stop tackle, for anybody that doesn't know, on PFF's matrix, is a situation where the tackle was made in a situation in which the offensive play was considered a failure. So on first down, you need to get 4 or more yards, or it's a failure because you want to keep it on schedule. Second down, you need to get half of the remaining yards. So if it's 2nd and 6, you need to get 3 yards. If it's 2nd and 12, you need to get 6. And then on third or fourth down, you need to get a first down or a touchdown, or it's considered a stop tackle for the defense. They had 33 stop tackles. Grant Delpit has 4. Myles Garrett has 6. 4 for Chase Winovich, who had a really nice game.
Welcome
that
to
was
the party, Chase.
Really fun. We appreciate it. 3 for Clowney. Is that Clowney? No, I'm sorry. I'm looking. Oh, I'm all messed up now. 3 for Clowney and Deion Jones. Both had 3 as well. And so it ends up, and then a whole list of people had like 2 and 1 and things like that. But,
can I ask a quick defensive question?
Yeah.
How did Reggie Ragland do?
So Reggie Ragland, he ends up with a 71.4 in 24 snaps. He does not register a stop tackle, but 24 snaps, played pretty well. I mean, I saw him flying all over the field. I think he was pretty. I really like Reggie Ragland. I was going to put something out about him later this week. I said it last week when he played really, really well that like he should get signed for camp. Like at minimum, he should be in training camp in 2023. And I think he did enough again. Excuse me, to say, let's make sure this guy comes in, goes to training camp. Listen, if you want to discredit this and act like the Browns, then why aren't the Commanders getting the number 1 pick if whatever the Browns did was not impressive? I mean, it was a total domination. You allowed a 21-yard drive to end a half, came back out on defense again, forced a punt, and allowed 3 points in that second half. 10 points to a professional NFL team. And you were able to withhold a pretty good running back who still had 87 yards, but they didn't run all over you again. They understood the assignment too because they were running it up the gut. But we got exactly what we talked about in the offseason. You got exactly what we talked about in the offseason. In the second half, the Browns were throwing the ball. They were scoring. They were making explosive plays. And because they were making explosive plays, the Commanders were not able to lean on 3, 4, 5-yard gains up the middle against our defensive tackles because they would not have scored at a quick enough rate to make up for it. So the Browns showed you, this is why we thought we could downplay defensive tackles. I think this was a perfect case for that. And just like Greg Newsome had a hell of a game, Reggie Ragland, AJ Green, Chase Winovich, the Browns had 9 players with 70 or higher overall PFF grades on defense.
I just want to say, even on that 21 play drive where the Washington goes all the way down, the Browns still got them into a position where they're on the goal line and they're still desperately trying to stop them. Like, I think one of the things
it took it to 4th and goal.
Yeah. And yes, Washington scores. I get that. But the defense is fighting tooth and nail. And so I think as we've seen, especially in the last few games, the Browns are always fighting. They're always giving effort. They're always playing. And I think that's a really important theme that they are showing. Because they could have been demoralized. They could have just said, you know what? The offense is doing nothing. We just were out there for 21 plays, right? They could have come out in the second half and they could have just phoned it in.
Yeah.
That is absolutely something they could have done. And you mentioned about Brian Robinson. I know he had 87 yards. Washington is not afraid to give that guy every carry imaginable. And you know what? So when the Browns are down as many linebackers as they are, like, that was probably my greatest concern. Like, is Washington just going to put up 180 rushing yards, and are they just because that could have been a way to go? Like, yes, Carson Wentz was struggling, but if the Browns did not come up with an answer to slow down that rushing attack, that the game easily goes the other way. I think so.
Yeah.
So,
they did limit it. Sorry. They were able to limit it and kind of downplay some things.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I don't know why they went to Wentz. I just
that's a good question. But you know what? I think too, we were asking early in the year, you know, where are the turnovers? And especially when the defense was struggling. I think it's another example and we talked about this in our previous episodes, because we were drawing a lot of parallels to 2020, where the defense overall wasn't really great, but the turnovers masked a lot of their deficiencies. And I think, again, we saw, you know, especially Grant Delpit, which you can't say any more good things. It's so nice too to see one of Andrew Berry's really high picks starting to really perform. Like, I remember when Grant Delpit was drafted, a lot of people said he could have been a first rounder if he didn't have his own injury issues and that kind of thing. And then he tears his Achilles and doesn't really play fantastic. And so this Grant Delpit is a great example of why giving players time is a really important piece to develop. And it's really nice to see examples of that. And I know as we get in the second half here, we're going to talk about yet again another week of Donovan Peoples-Jones. But I just wanted to give a couple thoughts. It's not the Browns are fighting. I know they're not they're fighting for they don't have a chance at the playoffs anymore, but to see them still fighting, to see, you know, Deshaun still engaged in talking about the long-term future, I feel like there's a mentality there that when he talks about that, and the team is reflecting it, right? They are playing for the long term when they're giving that type of effort.
And the thing was, we talked all week about the Browns not giving up, not phoning it in, because Myles Garrett was going to play, Nick Chubb was going to play, and there was all these questions like, are you just going to rest people for the last 2 games and stuff? And it came out, and in the first half offensively, I thought they did phone it in. I was like, oh, we thought they weren't going to quit, but actually it looks like they are, you know, and that's what it looked like. But to go from that to completely 180ing in the second half as we move into the offensive second half here was just, it was what you needed. Yes. You need to see that, because everybody told me that locker room had quit on Kevin Stefanski. I don't know if you saw that post-game locker room stuff going on in there. I don't look like a locker room that doesn't like their head coach. Maybe they still don't like their defensive coordinator, but he actually called one fucking hell of a game, moving Myles in to D-tackle as a stand-up linebacker, schooling centers, all kinds of mixed-up coverages and disguises. But anyway, you know, we shift gears into that second half, and I'm just like I was just so I was like, how does this get worse? I was like, how does this get any worse? I'm like, how's it going to get worse? And he comes out and they just start slinging the rock, and the 21-yard run was just, that's not what Browns quarterbacks do. They don't run for 21 yards. They don't. I don't know, but all of a sudden you start getting creative and you're seeing design quarterback runs that are working, and you're seeing Deshaun giving it to a running back when they're keying off of him, and they're starting to get more and more wrinkles into this game. And you saw steps forward. Also, I don't know if you remember this, but I was told Kevin Stefanski can't make adjustments in game. That's what I was told.
Tweeted about that one because that second half, the Browns looked a lot better in the second half than they did in the first one. And I don't know about you, but that kind of speaks to some adjustments that were made.
Yeah, and
does it only work? Do we only yell about adjustments when Kevin Stefanski doesn't make that? Because you know what, it was awfully quiet about the good things that the Browns did in the second half as they improved. Whereas it's really loud when people want to yell about Kevin Stefanski. It's funny how that works.
It's pretty funny. MC says, but sometimes we expect too much of young players. Many just need time to develop. That's Delpit. Yeah, especially if they're higher picks. I think, especially in this draft season, we need to understand that if you are not a first round pick or a high second round pick, you may not really be that expected to do a lot as a rookie. Martin Emerson kind of is and Cade York, because he's the kicker, kind of the exception to the rule this year, where a lot of those guys, when they have played, have been hot and cold, and but when you're on the back, you're in a third round for a reason. These are not guys that are ready to step in most of the time. And even sometimes in the second round, in Delpit's case, what really hurt him was that Achilles, because they always say that first year back, it's just hard. It's just you're not fully back until year 2. And so that's kind of some stuff with Delpit being pushed down to this season. But he's really just Delpit, like when he said some stuff early in the year about that, and some of it was throwing people under the bus, but like when he was talking about some things, that adjustments and things that he took responsibility for some bad plays here and there, it does seem as though the things that he admitted were deficiencies and needed correcting, he's worked on them. Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to get to where you are now than working on the deficiencies that are not really there anymore. So I really, really appreciate that. But, in the second half, the wide receivers were making some plays, and Watson finishes with 9 of 18. I get that. Doesn't even throw for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those 3 touchdowns, like they could have done more if Washington had been competitive and was keeping up with them, kind of scoring some more. I think the offense opens it up even more. But you see over 30 rushing yards from Watson, and some of he actually had more rushing yards, but some of those things where he ran out of bounds and he scrimmed, like people killed him for that Jack Conklin thing. But that dude scrambled for 15 seconds, kept that, I know, not really, but scrambled for nearly 15 seconds. Then he saw someone over by the sideline where tight ends usually hang out, and he flipped it to him. I truly do think that's what happened. But the thing is being discredited. He's being killed for that. And I get it. Everybody, especially because of who the person is, everybody's looking for the opportunity to try to just bury anything that happens. But that was another glimpse. I just think that we were finally shown something we've been waiting so long for, and we've suffered and dealt with all that has been dealt with around here. And you saw in that second half exactly why the Browns think everything is worth it.
You know what? I'd like to illustrate some key pieces to Deshaun Watson's game that don't show up on the stat sheet, but separate him as a quarterback that is just a completely different level of player than the Browns have had. One of my favorite tweets of the weekend, there's 4 separate pictures from 4 separate plays where Washington literally has Deshaun in their clutches, right? Someone from the defense has Deshaun. They've got a hand on him. They've got him nearly wrapped, whatever. And the caption, I wish I could credit who I saw this from. I'm sorry. There were so many tweets about the Browns. I can't. But the caption was, none of these plays ended in a sack. And I think it's so important to highlight the fact, like, because the pressure didn't just stop in the second half, right? The Browns didn't start magically blocking infinitely better than they did in the first half. Deshaun was able to escape and create and just these, you know what? I'm not here to bash on the guy. but Baker Mayfield was the most recent Browns quarterback aside from Deshaun Watson. So let's talk about just Baker. Baker for a second. Baker would get happy feet and drop his eyes when guys got even near him. Deshaun is keeping his eyes downfield and somehow escaping these plays that just less athletic quarterbacks. It's not Baker's fault. He's just not the athlete that Deshaun is. And so when you have a guy that stays calm under pressure, that can keep his eyes downfield, that can escape from these almost sure sacks with so many other quarterbacks in the league, that is the difference. It doesn't always have to be his pass yards or his completion percentage or his touchdowns, which his touchdowns were really good. But the fact that the play even continues, most quarterbacks, those plays are dead. You're dead in the water. Your offense is getting blown up. You blame the offensive line or whatever. But Deshaun's ability to extend and create was on full display, and that does not show up in the stat sheet, but that was, in my mind, was the absolute difference in this football game.
You know, and you hear this, like, when people are talking about the football player and what Cleveland was getting and all of that good stuff, you hear the phrase, like, a play's never dead. And I think this is really where you saw it. In the first half, it happened, but people weren't getting open or fighting back for the ball. And I thought the offensive line struggled a little bit. He was holding on to the ball. They weren't getting open. It was all this crap. And I think there's still that camaraderie, that chemistry. It's just him and Jacoby Brissett are not the same quarterback. And I think there's just so many growing pains that were just exponentially bigger than I thought they would be. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But regardless, you're seeing that offensive line learn how to play with him back there. You're seeing the wide receivers realize, I can't give up on a route because I think that a guy got a hold of Watson, he might not go down. There was one play where they get him in that group, and I think it was Jonathan Allen before he went out. I can't remember if it was him or if it was Daron Payne, who just kind of stopped because he thought Watson had thrown the ball. And then you see him turn around and he was like, where's Watson? And, and he was scrambling, ended up not being like, it was like a 1 yard gain or he ran out of bounds or whatever, but it was just a perfect illustration of that, phrase, the play's not dead with him. And that's sort of the thing that you got to see for the first time. And, it was pretty nice. MC asks about Ragland. Did you see where he stopped the runner with a full head of steam dead in his tracks? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Ragland, Ragland, you just haven't played a ton of snaps, and he hasn't been a super productive player in his career, but we'll see him in 2023 training camp.
Maximizing his opportunity. You love to see stories like that, right?
Yeah.
We saw it with Blake Hance and Michael Dunn, and a bunch of other Browns over the course of time, and they desperately need it at linebacker. So Reggie playing as well as he is, giving you solid contribution when literally your entire linebacker core has been decimated is such a boost. And I can't speak highly enough about what he's doing for the defense. And
he's got that size, 6'2", 252. He's got size that some of the other guys in the room just don't have.
You know what? You were talking about that play, and yes, it only gains a yard, but that's the difference between being the play ending in a sack and being behind the sticks, and the play just even gaining a yard, and you're still in a position where you're more likely to convert. It's crazy. Slowly but surely, we're starting to see those types of play, because it's like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are both famous for it. It looks like they're out of room, and that there's no way that they can create anything from this, and they just magically do. And slowly but surely, it's like you see some of that out of Deshaun, and it's really that to me is a true difference maker in the offense, and why I very much am excited about where we're going.
So let's transition to the last week of the season. As we kind of move along here, facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is what's at stake. Handing Mike Tomlin his first losing season as a head coach. Keeping Pittsburgh out of the playoffs. A third straight season of non-double-digit losses.
the
and at
first
least
sweep,
8 wins. Sorry.
the first sweep of the Pittsburgh Steelers by the Cleveland Browns since 1988.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was 88. I thought I had seen that. I don't believe they've ever even been. I believe that they would be 4-2 in the division. I think they've never done that in the AFC North. Like they've done it prior to '99, but I'm pretty sure I saw that. I tried to look it up, and for whatever reason, I couldn't figure that part up. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
No,
I don't know what's going on there. But you're looking at 4-2, sweeping the Steelers, ending their fucking season for once.
Yep.
Giving Tomlin that losing season, making them. Are you ready for the best part?
I'm ready.
They'll finish in last place in the division if you beat them. Last place.
I want it. I want it bad.
There is a lot at stake here, man. I've never wanted anything so bad in my football life ever. And Anthony Filippone will get kicked in the nuts.
Oh, yeah.
That's a thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up on Twitter. I don't want to talk about it.
You know what? I will admit I wanted 2020 in the playoffs worse than but
I wanted them in the playoffs at full strength. Yeah. Like when that was a possibility that was coming together, I was like, yeah.
But just you know what? Like this is Deshaun's one start against Pittsburgh, and if you win this game, I think you leave the season on such a high note that I don't think any of us would have expected a few weeks ago. And there's such an opportunity here to really, and you know what? Some people buy into momentum season to season. I do buy into the overall culture that the Browns are building. And so if you beat Pittsburgh, you sweep them. And like I said, neither one of the two of us were alive the last time the Browns swept the Steelers. I'm 32 years old. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. It's significant. I don't care what the Browns are playing for, playoffs, no playoffs. It's significant no matter how you spin it. And I think it's in Pittsburgh, right? The Steelers are playing for the playoffs. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be motivated. They're going to want to beat the tar out of you, like they have so many times in our lifetimes. You end the season with Pittsburgh. Everything goes terrible. The Browns coach gets fired. We know that story so many times. So it's like you have this whole opportunity to rewrite and redo and just not send us out on that. And I just think, you know what? Just a little bit moving back, Amari Cooper just set his career high in touchdown receptions, which I mean, people were like, Amari Cooper's not a wide receiver one, and they were questioning what the Browns were paying him and all that stuff. And well, yeah, you might want to walk that one back. And so there's with Amari and Donovan Peoples-Jones again catching all this stuff. Like, think about what the tone you could set going into next year if you once again beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, we also get to be insufferable on Twitter for like 9 months.
God, I will be.
I mean, I'm insufferable on Twitter always, but
if you beat Pittsburgh and I get to say the Browns eliminated Pittsburgh from the playoffs. The Browns swept the Steelers. Mike Tomlin had his first losing season. Kenny Pickett is winless against the Browns. Deshaun Watson's undefeated against the Steelers. I want it all so bad. It's just the stuff that keeps you warm through the off season.
If you guys are watching this live, I'm going to drop this link down into the YouTube and Facebook description. I will also put it in the description of the audio version as well as the YouTube, but that is a link to Damar Hamlin's foundation if you guys would like to give to that foundation, and which is now at nearly $5.5 million.
It's a nice
I don't know, man. It's been an interesting couple of days. It's been an interesting episode trying to just kind of get through these things when wasn't really sure how. But I think everything that's gone on, it'll feel pretty great. to just end it that way and just move on and just focus on plugging some defensive holes, focus on getting some speed out of the slot. I saw an interesting one brought up if he's available, because he will be a free agent, rather they'll sign him or not, and that's Curtis Samuel. And I would be pretty on board with getting Curtis Samuel, because then you're not necessarily forced to take a wide receiver relatively early. Although I still think this is yet again another pretty good wide receiver class, as I'm still, early stages of draft prep work. There will be this week, I think we're going to do linebackers. I think I'll have a linebacker draft episode up. I'm still working on getting a guest to bring in some of their prospects. If not, it'll just be me with 3 or 4 linebackers that I like. Next week will be Mock Draft 3.0. And for Mock Draft 3.0 next week, I will do that draft live. The video won't be live, but I will do the draft. I will do the draft whilst recording. And I want to do that just for anybody that has never messed around with a mock draft simulator, or if anybody's ever curious about why I do, or how or why I do my mock drafts, like the methodology that I use and why, how I come to each conclusion, and why I think the Browns may kind of do some of that stuff. And we're going to play around with that throughout the off season with using different simulators, because their big boards are different, so their simulations are different and all that stuff. So is some stuff you can expect here on YouTube, and as well as the audio for the Barking Browns just in the next week or two.
Which, by the way, we are getting so close to that 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. If you're here with us, it would support us, help us infinitely if you just click that subscribe button. It's free. You get notifications when we do all kinds of stuff. Jacob's mock draft videos are the hot topic on the Network 216 YouTube channel. A little like button, thumbs up.
I don't know why I didn't say anything. I just kept giving them thumbs up.
And we're really excited. You know what? It's funny because a lot of times the content in the off season is some of the most exciting and fun, and I can't wait. You know what? I learned so much from doing our draft content last year, and Jacob, Mr. Guru over there himself, has this whole library of film on guys. So I'm going to be learning right along with you guys. But I'm really excited to see, because there's this prevailing thought out there that the Browns don't have any picks. That is nonsense, and I think, you know what, entering eight picks, that's a lot of picks. Teams are not made out of purely first rounders. I don't know who needs to hear that. I think some people need to hear that.
I mean, I posted something. I think it was the wide receiver video. So I've got 2 mock drafts up here on YouTube, as well as a wide receiver and defensive tackle videos. And I posted the wide receiver one, which I think dropped on last Friday, and I got some comments on Facebook. They're like, "What draft?" And I'm just like, and that's when like the smart ass in me, the one that happens every April. It's like, what draft? You kiss my ass. Whatever. I think sometimes it just absolutely bamboozles me, the takes that we see online. But guys, the most valuable thing you can give someone is some of your time. So we appreciate yet again for you guys giving some of yours to us. But yeah, that's what I have for the evening.
I just, you know what, Jacob, I felt like this has been a whirlwind of a show because of everything that with Damar Hamlin, and so we are thinking of him. We're thinking of his family, and sending all the vibes, prayers that we can. So I appreciate the fact that we can discuss that, and that we can also discuss the Browns as we have. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. It means the world to us. We can't wait for what's coming. And in the meantime, we're hoping for more good news on that front. So with that being said, this has been episode 89 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
Fuck the Steelers.